So something is just trying to like put out these thoughts all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Just stay with me. Don't even bother those thoughts. Just let those thoughts come and go. You realize that you're right now probably not feeling any sort of baggage. I know it probably feels maybe empty inside. It feels like there's nothing here. But it's also not bad. It's not good, but it's also not bad.
Mm-hmm.
This emptiness feeling that you feel, if you're not so tied on to the stories in your head, like any thought will come up and tell you, well, what's next?
Mm-hmm.
Just be here for now. This is what it's all about, man. Being present. This is what the present moment holds. So many of us are missing what the present moment has because we're just constantly on the hamster wheel of what's next? What am I doing here? What do I do next? What, you know what I'm saying? All I'm saying is, who is asking all these questions?
Mm-hmm.
Let's focus on that for a second.
Okay. Like, who's at, like, why are these questions
There's no
impossible?
answers to this because we don't know. You have no idea. I don't know.
True. Yeah.
You don't know. Science doesn't know.
Religion doesn't know.
Nobody
Science
knows.
doesn't know.
Well, actually, religion is actually probably the closest to
Really?
alluding to what we're talking about.
Okay.
So we're out of the exercise, so you can go back to your memories. By the way,
Okay.
Phew. So yeah, take all your shit and your baggage back, and feel heavy inside about how all the bullshit you have, to take care of.
All right, back to my life.
Yeah, back to your shit life. Anyway, point is, a lot of religion, or I shouldn't even say a lot of stories, because religion is just like, it's a very overloaded word. A lot of stories that are, from different cultures, stories of the Bible, story of the Buddha, stories of, Chinese cultures, story of, even, let's go back to even like stuff we learned in school, like Greek mythology and, all of that stuff. There is some, if you would get this more than anybody else, I would imagine, because you're, in the understanding that all of it is a play. All these stories have an underlying meaning that they're trying to convey.
Okay, are we talking about like the hero's journey and stuff like that?
Yeah,
like the psyche of that?
Let's start with the first story in the Bible, the Garden of Eden. Okay, so
I just talked about that in my classics class that I was in.
So let me break it down for you.
Okay.
So the Garden of Eden is a walled enclosure.
Mm-hmm.
That story is very similar to the story of the Buddha.
Mm-hmm.
He was the son of a king. He's a prince, young prince, Buddha.
Mm-hmm.
His father, as he grew up, made sure that he lived inside of a walled enclosure that was protected from all the chaos from outside of the world. Sound similar to the story of Adam and Eve? My point is, if you then dissect these stories further and many other stories of different...
There's a subtext.
There's always a subtext.
There's something right there that's the bones.
Exactly. So the point is, and you can see this with different movies, you can see... So
the Lion King is Hamlet.
Sure. And all of it is... So all of them... So let's say there are all of these stories, and let's put them all in like different, places, categories. Let's look for what they're all trying to point to. There's some underlying core that they're trying to point to, and a lot of it is to point you into the direction of the truth, facing the reality of what is. Because whenever we don't do that, all the chaos starts.
Yeah. Like whenever my truth is?
No. What's the objective truth?
Oh,
because your truth and my truth are perceptions.
Yeah.
Right? Like if we're looking at this thing, I look at this as, oh, this is a soundboard. I know what this does, blah, 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 because I've just like learned about it.
Yeah.
You bring in a baby in here. He sees none
Flashing
of that.
Lights
He sees
and
knobs and stuff.
Yeah.
So you know what I'm saying? That's not the truth.
Yeah.
The objective truth is that this is just a thing that exists.
I think I see where you're going with this, yeah.
So my point is, every story, if you look at it from a personal point of view, will have projections of your own like narrative. You will add on stuff from your life into that story. But if you were to take all that away, just like we just said, put your memories in a drawer for right now, and just objectively look at life, you will find that there is no real like chaos going on that like you think it is. It's just that you haven't realized that there's a still place inside of you that isn't bothered by all these things. Like, we attach like, oh, I hate the president, or like, dude, pick a few things. Like, you are seriously just clinging on to all this shit that you can't manage anyway, and you're so distracted, and that's why you have such a shitty lifestyle. That's why you have such a shitty, like, you know, space in your mind, because you don't know
I agree with
that there's a silent place too that exists inside of you.
My life hasn't become better until I've realized to accept who I am, know who I am, and then like do as you're saying right now, and like just be like, you know, like accept the world for what it is, not for how you perceive it.
100%. And who you are and who I am, we're essentially the same if we take away all the subcontext. If we take away all of the stories, if we take away even the flesh, we're the same.
Yeah.
And this, in the spiritual sense, is what a lot of the texts that are out there are trying to get you to understand. It's just that we have added all these other layers of, you know, you have, you know, the sin factor, just do this and not that. All that stuff then creates all this other conflict. But unless you start being, you know, present with the reality, you wouldn't have those other questions, because if you're acting from the true place of being present, you would not have any doubts. You would not have any, is this right or wrong? No, because that will just flow out of you, because you're so present with the reality that's in front of you. You will naturally act out what needs to be done. And anybody can contest that.